Hey y'all, support and resistance levels are at the absolute core of my trading strategy. Anything else that I build on, it starts with support and resistance levels. I remember as a brand new trader how intimidating the whole process of finding the right support and resistance levels was. And so I want to help show y'all today how I find my basic support and resistance levels that I've based my entire trading system and entire edge on. I do have multiple methods that I use for finding my levels, but if you can get the hang of this just basic core method and start building on it like I did, I think you'll have a lot of really great success making consistent income trading the market. So let's go ahead and get to the charts. First of all, here we are on an ES 1 minute chart, and that's not going to do. We're not going to be using a 1 minute chart for this. So I'm going to go ahead and go all the way up to the monthly. And I know this sounds crazy because I'm an intraday day trader, and a lot of the days I'm scalping for 3 or 4 points when the market's not moving very much. So this sounds crazy zooming all the way out to the monthly, but stick with me. Trust the process. This is hopefully going to make a whole lot of sense in just a minute. When we're looking for areas of support and resistance in the market, really what we're doing is looking for areas of interest. Where is the market reacting? Where is it turning around? Where is it saying price can't go past this point? And that's going to be a lot of these swing highs and swing lows. We're going to be looking for wicks. The main thing that we're looking for is areas where we have multiple points of reaction. So on the monthly, we're not going to have as many, but we still have some. Because they're on the monthly, they're going to be the strongest. The higher the time frame, the stronger the level. So even though we're not going to find as many, they're going to be the strongest. So right here, we can go ahead and start taking a look at this swing high. We've got a really nice swing high right here. We've got another really nice swing high right here. What this tells me is the market is really an auction. So what's going on underneath is the buyers and sellers that are driving price have decided that price can come up to this point. At this point, they decided that's enough. There's no more. There's no reason for the price to go any higher than this, and price came back down. When it got down here, this is buyers and sellers, the actual participants in the market, in the actual auction of the market, saying this is as low as price can go. If we go any cheaper than this, like that's just fire sale. We're not doing that. Price comes back up. But where does it come up to? Both times it comes up to kind of close to the same area, just visually. And I like to, most of the time, I mark the wicks. And you'll see people kind of go back and forth on the bodies and the wicks. I will use both. Most of the time when I'm just starting out, I go ahead and use the wicks. So I'm going to go ahead and mark the wick on that. I have the magnetic feature turned on my trading view. That really helps me. So when I'm hovering over a candle like that, when I drop a level on it, it's going to be kind of stuck to that wick, even though I'm pretty zoomed out right now. So the same thing down here, I've got the top of this body, and then I've got the top of this wick. I'm going to let it kind of magnet to the top of that wick because that's the higher point. That's as high as price got before the auction decided that that price was too much for that point in time and had to bring it back down before they could break through this area. So the way I look at this is this area took 3 tries to break through. This is an area where the market kind of had a line in the sand, and once we crossed it, this area that was resistance is going to turn into support. But the first thing I want to do is move from the monthly chart now into the next time frame, which is the weekly chart. And when we move down to the weekly, this gives us a chance to kind of fine tune and make sure that this zone is marked out the way that it should be. And if I had marked the bodies, this would have been down here, and you can see it doesn't get as many edge touches. I'm kind of looking for the edge of price where the auction ended, right? That where whatever time frame it was, these are weekly candles. So this will be where the auction ended for that week. And that's really up here at these wicks. So we've got 1 touch, 2 touch on this upper line here. And then when we come back, we go back through it, but then we're getting touches on bodies, and I still like that. That's showing me that was a pretty strong price where a lot of orders were placed, whether they're passive or active. Passive being like limit orders that are sitting there waiting, and active being like the market orders where price is really aggressive. Whatever kind of orders were happening at this point right here. So I can tell that that's a really good level. And on this lower level, this lined up really, really nicely with this wick, and then again with this wick, and then it finally broke through here. I think that this level up here, because it got so many touches and then was this breakthrough point, is probably the stronger level. So what I'll do on this is, if I think it's a stronger level, is I just mark it with a thicker line, so it's, you know, visually heavier and stronger. So after the weekly chart, we can move down into the daily. And then again, I'll kind of be looking at where these levels are and making sure they still make sense on this next lower time frame, and it still is kind of lining up pretty nicely with that. Now the higher time frame levels are going to be stronger and more reliable, but it's not going to be as precise a lot of the times. So when we start zooming in, that's where I'll start kind of getting into those precision spots where I really want to pay attention. But for starters right now, this zone is still really, really obvious. Because price has been just in the same pattern, just shooting straight up this year, we don't have as many highs and lows to really mark all these levels on. So this is, we're just started April 2024 right now. So here's January. You can see our pattern has just been straight up. So I'm going to go a little bit backwards and kind of show you all some other levels that we could find here. And when price is moving just straight up like this, we may kind of run out of support and resistance levels, and that's when we add on other strategies like Fibonacci, intraday, volume profile, market profile, and things like that. But right now we're sticking to just basic support and resistance levels, so I'm going to take y'all back a little bit too. Even saying that though, so we'll start out kind of zoomed up back so we can get some of these other levels back here. I am still going to show y'all how to get some of the really precise levels in there. But we can zoom out and kind of see, this is another area where price is definitely giving some reaction. The other thing I like to do is zoom in on the most recent price action we've had to kind of figure out where that level should be. This is not one of those super strong ones, so I'm just going to mark it in a regular weight. One of the other things that I'm looking at here, and gaps will be a whole other lesson, but you do need to pay attention to where gaps are too. So you can see how this whole area is getting really, really interesting. We've got a gap right here, and gaps aren't going to act like support and resistance. They're going to act more like magnets. I do mark those for this video. I'm not going to today. Just, know that that would be something of interest to kind of mark there, probably in a different color. And I do end up labeling most of my levels. I try to be really good at labeling them. So that way, if we have been trading way up here and then finally come down, I'm going to know what that was. Okay, so the next thing that you want to kind of do is see where else we've had a lot of these kind of reactions where we've had multiple candles. And if we zoom back here, just to kind of give y'all some examples, when I see these wicks and it kind of lines up with the zone, this is going to be another area that would interest me. Kind of down here off of this wick, and it would be kind of a wider zone, but you can see after we had that gap, test one, had to break through there, it kind of creates this retest, breaks back through it, retests it up here. It'll break through it, but this is a level where price tends to kind of have some second thoughts and things. So when you have a lot of price action moving up and down, that gives you a lot of good areas where you can look for those sorts of things. This is all you're looking for, is lots of little touches and lots of places where price turns around. The more touches and turnarounds that you can find on that level, the better. So I'm going to show you an example. I'm going to zoom in on this daily chart because, like I told you, this is kind of hard because the pattern's just been straight up. This would be when I might draw on some structure and that sort of thing. But again, that's another topic. We'll cover that one later. But even when these candles are like this, you can still kind of find some interesting areas to mark. So I showed you that other gap example. We have another one here. This gap up was filled with a wick, but this is still a really interesting spot because price has really not been able to go back below that wick. Do y'all see that? So even though there's a gap and gaps are magnetic, it only filled this gap with a wick. So that shows me that this level is a pretty solid and strong one. So we wicked it there, and then we wicked it when we took off from this area too. So that's definitely an area of interest there. And if we zoom in a little bit more, I'm kind of looking at this area too. We've got all of these wicks. Where is price turning around? It turns around there. there. That spot got a few touches. We've got that candle, and then when I look over here, it's got that candle. Could even do something on today. When we have a lot of wicks like this that are matching up with bodies, I'll end up kind of drawing it as a zone again. So the main level I might mark out right there. And then if we want to add a zone to it, I'm just hovering to kind of see where these high and low points are. And I do like this point. So that'll be one side of it. And then this wick is the other side of it. And then we have a zone right there. That is really how simple it is. And you might feel like you're doing it wrong, and that's imposter syndrome. That's because you're new. It really, really is this simple. And if you want confidence, there's lots of other people that post their support and resistance levels, but this is the kind of thing we're looking for. This is really as simple as it is. So now we can find some resistance levels trading above price because we have some wicks up here. We got a touch on this hammer candle here. We got a touch on this other doji here. You see how I'm looking at that? I'm just hovering and seeing where the interesting price points are. So we have the high up here. I'm going to mark the all-time high. But do you see how it's a little bit less interesting than where these wicks are ending up? So I'm going to mark that up there. And then I'm also looking, because we had where this doji was, that would be the open and close of a day, a whole day. And then we've got this close up here. We've got this open was just below that. So that's another interesting spot there. And I know that it looks really close on that daily chart, but what happens, then we're going to move down again. I'm first going to move down into the 6 hour because I actually really like this time frame for levels. And let me zoom down to the 6 hour. You can see again where these levels, I will kind of confirm that I like where this lower level down here is. But I can really zoom in here and see if I like that spot. I really do like where this lower one is. That one still looks good. I like it on those wicks. But you can see how that's less of a zone now and two separate levels. The more we zoom in, the more that looks like two levels. Now that's becoming some little intraday levels that I could play off of, because that, if you can't read it, it's 5308 up to 5321. So that would be a really nice intraday move that we could get something off of. So we started out really, really macro because that puts the whole thing into context. But now we're getting these really, really great points of support and resistance. We've got a big area here that I can start filling in. So I'll kind of go look in here on the 6 hour and see what we can find. This is really how simple it is, y'all. We got a doji here that's lining up with another wick on the right side, another wick on the left side. So I'm definitely going to mark that one. I'm going to mark it on this wick because, again, I'm trying to find on the magnet, I want to find the most recent level. And it may not be the most recent. It's going to be the most hit or the most recent. I kind of just have to make a judgment call on that. But you see how this one looks really good because it hits this wick and that body in the middle of that doji. So that's another area that's going to be definitely very interesting. And again, I'm noticing that there's a gap here. So this, if we're going to say that where price turns around is support and resistance, these gaps are going to kind of be magnets, but price will be drawn to them. And based on whether it comes down here and creates another wick or makes a solid candle movement through there, that'll show us what the auction is really accepting or not accepting. So if price were to come back down and come straight through this zone and then start trading below, then we know that this breakout is no longer supported, that the auction saying this pricing is too high. We're not feeling this anymore. We've got to, this is where we're more comfortable. If it holds above this gap, that's going to show us that this magnetic power of this gap that's only filled by wicks is so strong that price keeps trading away from it. So that's the kind of thing that when I'm talking about context, I guess it's kind of narrative too. You're thinking of, you have to think about the market. This isn't some magical thing. I know there's a lot of clickbait and things out there where they're making it sound like there's like all this conspiracy theory in the market. There's actual buyers and sellers participating in the market every day. It really is a live auction, and that's where these support and resistance levels come from. And maybe there is some voodoo magic you can do with all sorts of math and other things, but this is why this is the core of my trading system, is this is the most simple. So the hourly is another one of my favorites. Sometimes I'll also go down to the 4 hour and the 2 hour and the 1 hour, but I think y'all are getting the idea. So I'm just going to bump down to the 1 hour. And again, we can just, it's the exact same process. We're just looking at where the market turns around. And look, all of these levels that I marked on the higher time frames, look at how well they line up on the lower time frames also. The only thing I'm going to do is kind of look for areas that I might have missed. So up in this price area, we've got this little wick here. We're not getting a lot of touches on it though, so that's not necessarily a strong area. Plus price came straight down through it there. So that might have been like some previous support and resistance, but it's not currently. And the other thing I'm going to look at is through here. Sometimes it will be straight through the middle of price, and then it's not going to be a strong support or resistance level, and that's what I kind of call those speed bumps. So if you're into labeling your charts, and I am, I'm not doing it just for the sake of time here, but if you label your charts, I'll label them with magnets and speed bumps and all sorts of things so I know what they are. In addition to labeling them by date and thing, if I want it, I can be a little nerdy organizing my chart. And so we don't have a really great example in here to show you. I mean, we've got a few touches on like these guys up here. Let me zoom back in for a sec. And we'll nail one up here. But then we can zoom back left to figure out what was going on. We're going to look for the same thing down in this price area. When price was trading down in this area, what were the spots of interest? We've already picked out the most major ones, so these next ones that we're finding on this 1 hour time frame aren't going to be as strong. A lot of these are going to be kind of more speed bump levels. But you can tell there's definitely kind of a zone in here. Kind of this, oop, that didn't quite mark right. But we've got another kind of area here, and sometimes I'll just mark these as a zone like that and not even put a firm level in there. You can set to where your the levels of your zones are marked on the chart. I just personally prefer it this way, so I don't have that turned on. But that's another area that I can watch when price comes, if price comes down here. That's another area that we can watch. So that is literally as simple and easy as it is. I go down about to the 1 hour. And then when I zoom out further into the 5 minute, you can see how nicely all these levels are going to act. I'll kind of zoom out this way for y'all too. So this is the next area. You can see how when just visually too, you can kind of see how big of a big drop is, right? It's like visually that's about how big it is. We can see how that might be where this zone and this level is too. So that all kind of lines up of where the market is willing to move, how much the market is willing to move, and areas where the market is willing to move. So now I can use these way down here on the 5 minute chart, even the 2 minute. If y'all go watch my videos, you know I'm not a big fan of going much smaller than this, but that's as simple as it is, y'all. So I'm going to go ahead and teach y'all some more advanced skills in some future videos. So keep an eye on my playlist and turn notifications on and all that jazz. And hopefully I'll see y'all soon. Check the description for, discounts and links and all that fun stuff. And I'll see y'all later. Love y'all.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.